Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to a new session of Islam Study Circle. We were doing Surah Al Baqarah and we had studied up to verse 29 of Surah Al Baqarah. Today I will start from verse 30. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. I seek refuge in Allah the God from the evil whispers of Satan, the rejected one. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is everlasting. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. And recall the time when your Lord said to the angels, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I am creating a khalifa in the world. I am sending an independent creature in this world. Khalifa has various meanings, but looking at the context and the various possible meanings, it seems that the Almighty is mentioning His decision regarding man who was to have freedom, liberty of choice, and ability to implement His will. So God decided that He wanted to create a being who would be given considerable liberty and freedom for a limited span of time for them to be tested in this world. In order for Him to be able to do it, He decided to let angels know about it, because after all, His angels were a very important part of the whole scheme. Listening to what the Almighty's plan was, the angels responded, قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها. Are you going to create therein those who are going to create mischief in it? وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء, and will shed the blood of each other. In other words, the Almighty announced His plan of sending man to earth, and the angels were surprised. They raised objections. They were not comfortable with the idea. And they asked God that, is it that you're going to create such creatures who are going to cause mischief on earth, do things which are going to be evil, and they're going to go as far as killing each other and shedding the blood of each other? By the way, they weren't absolutely wrong. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. And we do your tasbih, exalt you. We declare that you are free from all faults. بِحَمْدِكَ, and we praise you. وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ, and we declare you pure. In other words, we remember you, we glorify you, and we do all the kinds of utterances that you deserve. قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. God responded by saying, I know what you don't know. There are obviously a few questions that arise as a consequence of reading the meanings of this verse. Why did the angels raise this objection? What caused them to feel that the decision of the Almighty is going to cause those who are going to get created to be inclined to do evil? The answer is that the two possible answers. One is that they might have already noticed it amongst jinns who were already there, and they were similar to humans, men in many ways. And they would have already seen the fact that jinns didn't turn out to be particularly impressive as far as their performance was concerned. But perhaps the more likely answer is that these angels, they knew that as a part of the Almighty's scheme, humans shall be given considerable freedom and liberty. And probably that was the reason why the Almighty was announcing about His plan to create them before angels, so that the angels should know that this is what needs to be done, and therefore do not interfere in their independence, in their freedom. The other thing that is significant is that angels, about whom we all have this understanding, and rightly so, that they are obedient servants of the Almighty. They do what He asks them to do. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. And yet, when it came to the announcement of a very important plan, grand scheme of the Almighty, they were not convinced, and they didn't say, Samena wa atana, we listen and we obey. Instead, they asked questions, or shall I say, they raised objections. Why did they do so? How is it possible? And what is the message? Well, the reason why they asked this question I've already mentioned. But how was it possible? Well, it was possible because God allowed them this liberty. God allowed them to raise questions, to bring forth objections, and to talk about it. And the reason why the Almighty did it, and the reason why the Almighty does it, is that He wants His intelligent beings, humans, jinns, angels, to be intellectually convinced before they are asked to embark upon a project. Why? Because this intellect has been given to humans, to jinns, and to angels by the Almighty Himself. It is this intellect which enables His creatures, these three creatures at least, who are intelligent creatures, to take decisions, to understand matters, to be convinced. How can you imagine these three creatures to follow the Almighty's path without understanding and without being convinced that what they have been given to do is indeed correct, is indeed convincing? What I'm trying to say is that the Almighty does not discourage use of intellect. On the contrary, He very much encourages use of intellect, without which it is not possible for an intelligent being to be obedient to the Almighty, to worship Him, and to follow His path properly in a manner that He is convinced. So, they asked this question, and the Almighty's response was, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know what you don't know. What it actually meant was that the Almighty is saying that, let me give my perspective. I'm trying to paraphrase what the Almighty said, all possibilities included. It seemed as if God said that, you know what, you have a point. But the trouble is that you don't know the whole picture. You do not know what I know. Inni a'lamu, I know, ma la ta'lamun, what you don't know. So you know a certain part of the scheme which has caused you to be surprised, and it caused you to raise objections. But there is another part of the scheme which you don't know. And therefore, you are saying what you're saying. You're raising this objection. So what the Almighty did was, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. He taught Adam names, all of them. So, Adam alayhi salam, Adam comes into picture. He was the first of the Khalifas, the first creature that was promised to be created. He was to be the leader, the ancestor of the rest of the humankind. And the Almighty taught him names, all of them. ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ. Then he presented them عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ, before the angels. Presented whom? Presented those whose names were taught to Adam. You see, the pronoun used in this verse, aradahum, is a pronoun which is only used for either humans or jinns or angels, the three intelligent beings. Had it been some creature other than these three, then hum would not have been used, would not have been possible to be used from the point of view of Arabic language and its proper usage. So it seems that the Almighty taught to Adam names of certain individuals, and those individuals belong to a certain category. He gave him names of all those belonging to that category. فَقَالَ أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ. Then he asked them, let me know the names of these, that is, of these humans. إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ, if you are really truthful. If you are really correct and truthful in your claim that the creature that I'm about to send to the world is going to turn out to be a complete failure. It's not a great decision. So let me know whether you have full knowledge. I have presented before you a specimen of those creatures who will ultimately go to the world and play their innings, stay there for a while. So if you know them, let me know. Let me know their names. Names obviously means their names, their potential, the kind of performance that they're likely to make, etc. قالوا, they responded, that is, the angels responded, Subhanaka, you are free from all false errors. La ilma lana, we have no knowledge, illa ma allamtana, except for what you have taught us. Innaka antal alimul hakim, indeed you are the one who is completely knowledgeable and wise. That is, the angels admitted that these beings who have been presented before us are the ones we don't know about them anything. And therefore, they just confessed, admitted. قَالَ يَا آدَمُ أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. God said to Adam, أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. Let them know their names. That is, let the angels know the names of these people who I have presented before them, for them to find out as to who they are and what exactly are they likely to do, what is their potential. قَالَ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. Then, when he presented them with their names, when he made them know about their names, as I said, would include their CV, their whole performance, whatever great deeds they did or they were about to do, they were destined to do. قَالَ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ. He said, that is, God said, أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ. Did I not tell you? إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ, I know, غَيْبَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the hidden realities of the heavens and the earth. وَأَعْلَمُ مَا تُبْدُونَ, and I know what you show, what you reveal. وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ, and I know what you conceal. What you were concealing. That is, God said to them, to the angels, that look here, you raised an objection, and you thought that the new species creation that I'm about to send to the world, to this earth planet, is likely to be a failure, and you were wondering why, what's the great idea, why are they being created when we are already there to worship you. Now that I've presented some names before you, some individuals before you through Adam, and you've admitted that you've no knowledge of them, let me tell you that I know everything. What you do in the open, what you do in a way that it's all manifest and clear, and I also know what you people hide. So it was a reference to the fact that the angels had in their mind this hidden notion that what is the purpose of creating somebody new when we are already there? Why should we not get that status? Why should we not be the ones with whom the Almighty should be so satisfied that He should not feel the need to create somebody else? God knew that as well. So God said, I know what you were hiding, and I know what is obvious, what you were saying. But the question is, how did the angels feel satisfied at what the Almighty is saying is indeed correct? Or in other words, how did the Almighty go about to satisfy the angels and to remove the kind of questions, misunderstandings that were troubling them, causing problems for them? Well, the answer is that the angels, they raised this objection simply because of the fact, as I said, that they knew that this new creation is going to be given considerable freedom and liberty, and there's going to be so much of glamour in the world that God has created that it's very unlikely that people are not going to be tempted towards it, and that is going to cause mischief. People would forget about God, forget about His boundaries, His expectations, and they will start living in a manner that they would think is good for them. And God, in response, introduced them to certain humans, and obviously outstanding humans, those who were likely to go to the world and perform in the most appropriate, befitting, and impressive way. God informed the angels that your apprehensions are correct. The freedom that I'm going to give to these humans is going to be misused as well. But the point that you've missed is that there are going to be good humans as well. The freedom that I'm going to give to humans, you are not entirely wrong, is going to be misused. But it's not going to be misused by everybody. There are going to be some outstanding humans who are going to use the freedom given by me to them in the right, proper manner, and they are going to perform deeds of extremely high quality. And that is why I'm creating humans. In other words, the Almighty informed the angel that the creation that I am about to make, the design that I have in my plan, is actually to create a man, humans, Khalifa, that will go through a life of test, of trial in this world, and then Out of those who will go through this test, some are going to perform poorly, as you've rightly assumed, but there's some others who are going to perform in an excellent, impressive manner, something that you did not think of. And my plan to create humans and give them life in this world, in this earth planet, is precisely this. That is, they be tested, and then through the test it comes to the fore, it becomes clear as to who are the winners, who are those who are worthy of being given the excellent world of paradise, and who are the losers who will not deserve to get God's mercy because of their poor performance. For this test to be a reality, there had to be liberty and freedom given to humans. And that liberty, once it's given to them, obviously, it has both possibilities. It could be used positively and it could be misused as well. So the angels, they were inclined to just think of the possibility of freedom being used by humans incorrectly, negatively. The Almighty corrected them and informed them through Adam alayhi salam, by telling them, letting them know about the names of these beings and their outstanding performances. He informed them that it's going to be both possibilities getting actualized in the world. So the angels were satisfied with the answer. As I said earlier, this whole description of the incident shows and proves beyond doubt that in religion, use of intellect and critical thinking is of utmost significance. You cannot do anything worthwhile in religion if you don't understand it properly, if you don't question it, and if you don't feel at ease and comfortable with the idea. Blindly following something is going to make people mechanical in what they're doing. It will make them not comfortable with others who have a different view. They would neglect and ignore their thinking process. And the kind of focus, involvement, and motivation that an individual has when he or she is able to think through a certain process and be fully content and satisfied with the logic and rationale behind it, that's something which really the Almighty wants all humans to be able to achieve. That's why the Quran continues to urge the reader to use his intellect, to think, to critically examine, and to understand what has been given to them is indeed good, is correct, makes sense, and therefore it's from God. You see, to give you an example, the Quran mentions in Surah An-Nisa, 4th chapter of the Quran, verse 82. The background of the verse is that there were some hypocrites and there were some weak Muslims who were influenced by those hypocrites, who were not taking the message of Islam seriously, were not paying heed to what the Prophet, may Allah's mercy be on him, was telling them to do. It was obviously something very surprising, unacceptable. How can people who claim to be Muslims be not serious about what the Almighty's Messenger is telling them to do? So, the Quran expresses its dissatisfaction and surprise at this behavior of some so-called Muslims, and says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Do they not ponder and reflect upon the Quran? Do they not try to understand the Quran deeply? وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ, had it been from anyone other than Allah, لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, they would have found in it a lot of differences, discrepancies, and contradictions. In other words, the Almighty is saying that the Quran is free of contradictions, and therefore it is God's book, because only God's knowledge is perfect. Human knowledge is limited and imperfect. They learn one thing today and alter it tomorrow and realter it the next day. With new information, better information, people tend to change their stances, their approach and understanding. So that's what humans are obviously they are capable. But God, His knowledge is perfect. Therefore, He doesn't change. He doesn't need to make any changes. And the Quran is without any contradictions. It was revealed over a period of 22, 23 years, and yet the Quran has not changed at all. That is, its basic principles and the important expectations that the Almighty has from humans, all across these 22, 23 years, the expectations have remained the same. How? Because God is the one who has given us this text, and God is perfect in His knowledge. How would you come to learn about it? Through understanding the Quran with an open mind, with deep reflection. I can assure you that when you will do it, to begin with, you might find certain apparent contradictions, but the more one ponders and reflects, the more one gets convinced that the apparent contradictions were not real, not genuine. And the truth of the matter is that God doesn't contradict Himself. How do you come to learn about it? The Quran says in this verse, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not the Quran? Do they not reflect upon the Quranic verses? The Quran encourages to use his, her intellect. That's exactly what the message of these verses that we have discussed today, the message is. That is, the Almighty is telling us that angels had a problem with God's plan to begin with, because they had not thought of it properly and completely. The Almighty, when He heard the objections raised by them, He did not He didn't reject the possibility of this question getting raised. He arranged for the objections to be properly responded to. And that's what the Quran continues to urge. We must use our intellect, try to understand the message of the Quran, and as a consequence of this process of understanding and intellectualizing, we grow in confidence. And this growth of confidence, this strengthening of understanding is what causes us to be strong in our faith. That's the manner that God's religion is to be understood. So the bottom line is, the lesson that we have learned from 3 verses that we have done today is that God, or were there 4? Yes, there were 4 verses. That God us to use our intellect. There's nothing wrong in understanding with an open mind. There's nothing wrong with raising objections if they are genuinely there in the minds of people. But the important thing is that we must not stop by just raising questions. We should explore, find out more, ask people who know better, and we will come to learn about the fact that what we had in mind was because of the fact that we didn't know everything. We didn't know things properly in a true, correct perspective. So this is God's message. His book urges the reader to use intellect with an open mind, with deep reflection. And the more you understand, you get convinced, provided the intention is good, and the idea is to seek knowledge and to be able to get clarification on matters which are causing confusion. Now let me see if there are any questions. Okay. How people can follow something, especially Deen, blindly, as its true essence is in understanding and trying to implement in one's life and as a fellow being. That is true. It's a mystery. How at all can it happen? Also, given the fact that we know that there is of religion, there are so many different religions, and in each religion there are then different sects, and there are many people who follow a certain point of view, religious point of view, believing that their point of view is correct and all others are incorrect, without using their intellect, simply on the basis of their emotional attachment to a certain point of view. I agree with you. It's amazing. I'm not too sure how it happens, but it does actually happen. The only way out is that we should help people understand and realize that we need to use our intellect properly, wisely, and in a fair, honest manner. Allah has stricken out the basics of morals and righteousness. So no matter how technologically advanced we get, the basic principles would apply as incredibly as from Stone Age. That's true. I mean, the basic principles are the same. How can one attain tazkiyah and have a strong faith in a consistent manner if one distracts from the righteous path in this delusional world? By reading the Quran, understanding it properly, making an earnest attempt to follow it, praying to the Almighty, asking Him for help, keeping good company, seeking His forgiveness as and when we do evil, and that's about it. So there are no mysterious ways of achieving tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is the ultimate goal of this religion, and we follow God's message, and we are on our course, on our path to attaining tazkiyah. I'll give you an example. The Quran tells us that saying prayers, salat, is meant to remember God. But that's not about all. The ultimate purpose is to get our tazkiyah done, to be purified and to achieve moral and spiritual excellence. That's what tazkiyah is. Tazkiyah has two levels, two parts. One is purification and the other is enhancement, improvement. All humans have a tremendous potential to make progress morally and spiritually. By moral progress, I mean good conduct, behavior with fellow humans. And means to be close to God as best as is possible. That's what we all are expected to do in this world. And we all have tremendous potential to be able to advance, make progress both spiritually and morally. However, the trouble is that in order for this life to be a trial, there are obstacles of our base desires that get attracted towards the glamorous evil that is available in the outside world, and the obstacle of our own ego, which stops us from making spiritual and moral advancement and progress. So when we understand God's message and follow it, we get purified on the one hand, that is, our base desires are discouraged, we try to overcome them, and our ego, and as a consequence, the potential that we have, it gets the opportunity of being realized. So that's what tazkiyah is. And I was saying that the Quran tells us that when we say our prayers, we remember God. But the Quran tells us that this remembrance of God, remembering Him, enables us to do tazkiyah. So tazkiyah is to be achieved through various different ways. One of them is saying prayers. So the Quran says in Surah Al Surah 87, verses 13 and 14, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. The one who has attained tazkiyah has succeeded, is going to get paradise. وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ فَصَلَّى. And he remembered the name of the Lord, the Rabb, his Rabb, فَصَلَّى. So he prayed. So if you look at it from the reverse order, prayer enables you to remember Allah. This remembering of Allah enables you to do your tazkiyah. And this tazkiyah is going to take you to success and to paradise. So do all these things and inshallah you will be through. Thought every aspect of every subject is being described. Didn't get it. It is not being described. Again, didn't get it. Are you referring to these verses? I think what the Almighty has mentioned in these verses is the names of humans and nothing else. Right, so we are done with today's session. Inshallah, we'll meet next Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. I somehow got delayed because of technical problem, but hopefully it's not going to be the case the next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.